Hello, everyone, and welcome to NaNoWriMo Tips, Tricks, and Motivations. With us today is author Reese Hogan, whose most recent book is Shrouded Loyalties. We're going to turn it over to Reese to do a quick introduction, and then we'll be asking some questions and getting some great answers about the writing process.
Okay, yes, I'm Reese Hogan. I am an author who writes science fiction primarily. And as Jenna said, my latest book is Shrouded Loyalties, which came out a little over a year ago from Angry Robot Publishers. And it's kind of a diesel punk spy-fi thriller. And then about a year before that, I came out with Holding the Ashes, which is a post-apocalyptic world set in Los Angeles and ruled by death gods. So that's who I am.
Great, thank you, Reese. We appreciate you being here with us today. We got a couple questions for you. Kathy is going to start off with the first question, and then we'll rotate. And if any of the attendees have any questions, they can put them in the chat, and we can get to those questions at the end.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Reese, I have a question for you. When you're thinking about starting a brand new novel, where do you get your ideas?
Well, that's a hard question for writers to answer because we get ideas from everywhere. What I've found is that I usually have to have about 3 ideas come together to really make a whole novel. Just one idea isn't usually enough to carry a novel on its own. So I've gotten ideas from anywhere from a picture on the internet to maybe a question on Jeopardy, that's happened before, to just kind of thought experiments with other works of fiction I like working with. So ideas can come from anywhere, really. So just anytime you find your mind wondering what if or what would happen when or anything like that, that's when you start putting together a book.
Thank you. For the next question, what things should you consider when you are at the beginning of your novel and starting to write your first words?
I think first and foremost, you need to keep in mind your main character. So when you put together a book, you have to keep in mind what your character wants, why they want it, and what is keeping them from getting it. And those are the things that you need to be thinking about all the time as you're moving forward on your plot. And you also need to be thinking about your stakes. So ask yourself, what's going to happen to my main character if they do not get what they want or what they need? Once you answer those questions for yourself, you probably will already have a plot starting to form, because that conflict that you have come up with against your character will start answering some of those questions for you about what's going to happen as they move forward trying to get this. So the first thing you should be thinking about is your plot, is your character. And then the other 2 important things, of course, are your plot and your world building.
Can you
keep the character? Yes, go ahead.
I was going to say, can you explain world building a little more?
Yes, absolutely. So as a science fiction writer or a fantasy writer, world building is huge. So you need to create this world that your character is going to inhabit. And so a lot of times when you're writing fantasy, that has to do with magic systems. And when you're writing sci-fi, a lot of it has to do with science. But a lot of people think that if they're not writing science fiction or fantasy, they don't have to worry about world building, but that is not true. If you're writing historical fiction, world building is studying your history and studying whatever specific history and place you're going to be writing in. Even if you are writing a small town romance, world building is building the details of that small town that you are working in. And world building is all about setting, and it's all about details, both of which are increasingly important in books.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So what tips do you have for people trying to write a 50,000 word novel in 30 days, especially if they have a busy life and a full-time job?
So the most important thing is that you need to find a time to write, and you need to not let go of that time no matter what. So pick a couple hours in the morning, a couple hours in the evening if you can. Tell the people in your life, this is my writing time, and I can't do anything else during this time. Find yourself a place to isolate yourself where you can focus on it, and guard that time with your life. Because people a lot of times assume that writers, they don't see that time as a job. They see it as you're going and doing something fun that you could break away from. But if you're a writer and if you're writing something, you need to treat it, you need to let people know this is really important to me and I'm not going to give up this time. If you can stick to that schedule, you will have a better chance of finishing. The other really important thing about NaNoWriMo is that, so you're expecting yourself to write 1,600 words a day, which is very difficult. A good writing day for me is over 1,000 words. And that's a pretty reasonable writing day, but to keep that up for 30 days straight, like you're expected to do in NaNoWriMo, is very, very challenging for anybody, I think. So so to complete it, not only do you have to guard that writing time of yours with your life, but you need to be ready to push past anything that might come up and just keep writing no matter what. Even if you get stuck, just keep going. And another thing is you need to expect to come out at the end of NaNoWriMo with a very messy first draft. Nobody expects anybody to come out with something that's ready to be querying and sending off to agents or anything. So keep in mind that NaNoWriMo novels they're like zero drafts, which is where you kind of figure out what you need to figure out for your next draft. So expect that you'll be doing another draft after you're done with this first draft that you write during NaNoWriMo. So let yourself be messy, I guess. So a tip, just let yourself be messy, let yourself get it all out, figure out what you need to figure out, and don't worry about the next step yet.
Great advice, thank you. I like it when people tell me I can be messy. Many authors say they struggle from writer's block. What tips can you give us for things that have worked for you to get past this?
Okay, so I think writing block stems from you're starting to doubt your story, or that you have lost interest in it somehow. So what I do when I'm really stuck is I'll go back to the last place I was really excited about it, or that I felt like it was going really strong. And what I've personally found is that usually if I get stuck, it's because I made a decision that I don't believe. So maybe my character did something that I didn't really believe, but I tried to force it. And then as I'm down the line, I keep questioning, why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? So what I need to do is I need to go back and change the direction, change the decision the character made, change the directions the characters go. And I usually find that shakes something loose. And even if it's just an excitement problem, like things got too boring somehow because the character made the safe decision instead of the dangerous or impulsive one that might be more realistic. And then, so if I just go back to that last place that felt really strong and try a different direction, that's usually very helpful.
Interesting. What were your early experiences with trying to get published?
Well, that's a hard question because I wrote for 20 years before I got published. So when you say early experiences, I'm thinking about when I was writing query letters and trying to get an agent and everything. But I didn't have any success with even getting manuscript requests until, was it 2017? The end of the year, I was involved in, first I sent my manuscript off to an open door policy from Angry Robot Books. Sorry. And then I joined this thing called Pitch Wars, which is a contest that I found it on Twitter. And Pitch Wars, sorry, Pitch Wars, you can pitch your manuscript and a number of people. You could get a mentor that can help you develop your manuscript. Anyway, this contest is the first that I actually got a manuscript request from. So that was really exciting. But then I didn't end up getting selected for it. But before the contest was even over, I got an offer from Angry Robot from this open door contest. So my experience was kind of different in the sense that I never got an actual manuscript request before I got an offer from a publisher, except through the Pitch Wars contest, which didn't really matter because Angry Robot got my book before that anyway. So after I got this offer from Angry Robots, I was able to query some agents, and I ended up with 3 offers. So I got more requests through that. So I think the moral of my story is you never know if you're getting good enough to get manuscript requests necessarily, because the competition is so high out there that you might not be getting requests, but your book might still be good enough to be published if you've been working at it long enough. Because I wrote my first book 21 years before I actually got an offer and a traditionally published book. But I had other avenues before that. Like I self-published a book before that, and I was also asked, like Holding the Ashes was put out by another group that asked me on to write a project based in another person's world. So, just keep working at your craft and making writer friends and getting feedback and everything. And I think it'll happen. You just have to keep at it for a long time sometimes.
Thank you. That's good advice. And it sounds like everybody's journey is completely different. So there's no template that anybody can give that is the same for anyone. Because any author that we might talk to over the course of our journey in the library is going to have a completely different story. And that's, I guess, what makes the world go round, right?
It's true.
For our last question, we've got a fun one, a different one. If you could have dinner with any 3 authors, dead or alive, who would you pick and why?
This was a hard question for me. I thought it was harder than the others, actually. I did get a few books here. So the first one I chose was Maria Snyder, who wrote Poison Study. And I chose her because I approached her actually to ask if she could do a blurb for my book, and she did. I had never talked to her before or anything, but I cold emailed her and I told her what my book was about, and she answered right away and thought it sounded really interesting and read it for me. And she was so nice, and it touched my heart that this famous author would do this for nobody like me who'd never even been published. So I was really enjoyed dealing with her and meeting her online. So I would love to have dinner with her. For the second one, I chose Rebecca Roanhorse, who wrote Trail of Lightning, and she's becoming huge in the sci-fi world now. I've met her a couple times, and she's just one of the nicest people I've met. And anytime she comes to talk at an event or do a signing or a reading, I always make sure I go see her because she is so much fun to watch in person. She just has a great personality. She's funny and nice, and she's also written some kids' books that I have read to my kids. Race to the Sun is the name of it. It was a Rick Riordan one that she wrote about Navajo culture. So, and for the third one, I chose Nathan McCarrick. Has written Robin Hood inspired. No, not Robin Hood inspired. Robin Hood is an actual character. It's kind of like a Game of Thrones meets Robin Hood, and it's a duology right now. And he does a really, really good job with telling the war and Robin Hood's story from all sides, all points of view, which is something I did in Shrouded Loyalties as well. So I thought that was a really cool connection there. And plus I've seen him talk online, and he seems like another person that would just be a lot of fun to have a conversation with.
Thank you. All excellent authors. So we've reached the point of conclusion for the questions that we had for you. Since we're such a small group today, I just want to let anybody who wants to talk can talk instead of doing questions in the chat. You just want to unmute yourself and ask any questions that you like. And then this will be recorded and on YouTube later. So if there's something you missed or you missed one of the authors Reese was talking about, it will be recorded so you can watch it again later. And those that weren't able to attend today will be able to get to that too. So if anybody has any questions, please ask.
Nadia has a question.
Well, yes, I already put it in the chat, but I can articulate it as well.
I didn't.
So I said that writing is often thought of as a solitary endeavor, but NaNoWriMo is in part dedicated to the community of writing. Do you find community or writing groups to be a part of the process in the beginning or in later stages of writing? When is community most helpful through the process?
Well, for me personally, I think for NaNoWriMo, they have really made it a community event because of just in terms of motivation and stuff. I think it helps people stay motivated if they're able to check in with word counts and kind of have a sort of accountability to it. For me personally, when I'm writing a book, I don't like share the words or anything like that, because I find that it can derail me too much if I start to have conversations about it and people give me ideas. So I need to kind of, like you said, make writing the book itself a solitary endeavor. But where I think these communities can come in really helpful is you can kind of talk out when you're having a frustration, maybe not about your actual book, but just share, I'm really frustrated because I haven't been able to meet my word count, and then others can pitch in and say maybe what's worked for them. Like I needed to add a second writing time every day to help me reach it. Or just maybe ask more generalized questions in these kind of community things. I do have a lot of communities of writers. I've met a lot on Twitter. I have a debut group from debut groups that came out last year in 2019. And just people I've met at conventions and stuff. And it's been wonderful having that community. So I do think writing the book itself is a pretty solitary endeavor, but I think having a community of writers is essential in terms of mental health.
Any other questions from anybody else? Is anybody else on the program today an aspiring author or a published author and has anything they want to share about what they're working on or what they're hoping to work on? Okay. So, well, if there are no other questions, then I do want to say thank you to Reese today for participating in our library NaNoWriMo tips, tricks, and motivation. We're a huge supporter, obviously, of people writing. It's what keeps us in business. We appreciate everything that you've shared today. We appreciate you giving us your time. We appreciate the works that you have done that we have in our library. So anybody who wants to check them out, they are available to be checked out. And I read Shrouded Loyalties last year and it was excellent. I really, really enjoyed it. I was hoping there would be a second one, but you never know, maybe someday.
Thanks, Jenna.
If there's no other questions, then I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.